We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, but today doesn't feel that way. We are divided in more ways than one, and the media and the powers that be all have their own agenda. The people of this great nation no longer care about the truth, they only care about the side they are on. At Poor 360, I am trying to change that. We're bringing you the facts and history so we can all learn something and make our own decisions. Tune in every Tuesday to be a part of that journey. The following
is a journey into comics.
Journey into comics.
It's a journey into comics.
It's a journey into comics.
Journey into comics.
Journey into comics.
Network.
Production.
Went forward in time to view alternate futures, to see all the possible outcomes of the coming conflict.
How many did you see?
14,605,000.
How many did we win?
One.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Journey into Comics, the podcast that's dedicated to everything nerd. With your host, the Podfather himself, Nate Phillips, and introducing his new co-host, Tyler McLaughlin.
You should have gone for the head.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of Journey into Comics. It's Journey into Comics 260. I am your host, Nate. Today, joining me, welcome back to the show, my co-host. You guys know him and love him. How's it going, Tyler?
I am all vacationed out and refreshed and ready to do this show.
We're tweencations right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
we're squeezing this one in.
I just finished mine, and now you're getting ready to go do yours.
Well, by the time this airs, I'll actually be prepping to get on a plane home, but in order for this to work right, we were like, we're going early in the week. We don't care. There's not been a ton of news. There's been some stuff, but we've got some stuff to cover. Before that, though, how was your vacation?
It was great.
What did you do?
I basically just chillaxed. Had a lot.
Great word, chillaxed.
I had a lot of good food. I had numerous adult beverages, which I don't normally do, but I was on vacation, so
fuck it.
Had to live it up. Spent a lot of time at the beach and the pool, and got a nice tan going. The drive to and from wasn't bad at all. Ruby was a saint in the car, so
it's huge. That's a huge win.
It was very difficult to get in the car and come home. I'll tell you that.
Oh man, so where'd you guys go exactly?
Panama City, Florida.
Sweet, awesome. Panama City is a nice place. When I had family that I was still in contact with, they lived in Fort Walton Beach and also Shalimar, so I definitely know that whole area and the Panhandle and whatnot. Beautiful. Absolutely. You sent me some gorgeous shots from your vacation. Be super happy and whatnot.
Yeah, the Gulf is fantastic.
How long was the drive there?
Right around 13 hours.
That's not terrible.
We made a lot better time coming home, just because I wasn't super tired, and I pretty much drove 80 to 85 all the way home. Since we were driving at night on the way down, I was a little bit more reserved.
Deer.
Well,
animals.
Yeah, that, and there's certain stretches of the highway, depending on which way you go, where you're driving in pitch black with forest on either side of the highway, and you never know when a fucking black bear or something's gonna run out in front of you. And I don't want to hit a black bear going 85 miles an hour, So
fuck no, you don't.
No. But no,
I don't care what vehicle you're in. You're having a hard time with that.
But no, we had a great time. I mean, it's been a long time since I've had, like the family beach vacation. So it was nice. It was much needed.
You got to recharge your batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any interesting things or stories that happened on your travels or during the actual vacation that stood out that was like, oh shit, I can't wait to talk about this?
I ran into some hillbillies from Kentucky
totally not expecting this. Okay, please continue.
So at the condo that we stay at, there's a tiki bar on the lower level. You can walk out of the tiki bar and then walk right onto their private stretch of beach, which is really nice. And they have daily drink specials and stuff like that. So you're encouraged to have some beverages. And I walked up. I was getting Skylar and I some margaritas, and there's like 4 or 5 hillbillies sitting at the bar. I could tell they're hillbillies just walking up. I just got that vibe, and come to find out they're from Kentucky. They rode their motorcycles down from Kentucky. They got in the night after us. Immediately started drinking. They were fucking hammered, and they didn't even go to sleep. They just got hammered, which was hilarious. But they had like an impromptu Trump rally like at the bar while I was sitting there.
Oh, Jesus.
And I was like, I don't really want to get into a big argument with Kentucky hillbillies while I'm on vacation. I just want to rest, relax, and recharge. But like always, I've got to be a little bit of an instigator. So I started, throwing some facts at them and giving some different perspectives. And by the end of it, I had the majority of the little group on the anti-Trump side, which was pretty funny, and just goes to show how, not necessarily uneducated, because I truly believe that a lot of the people that support Trump, number one, are uneducated on the topic itself, but it's not entirely their fault, because they're getting bamboozled or misled and indoctrinated the same way that Hitler did the German people. It's very easy to do in times of stress, and you latch onto a theme and then you run with it, and once people become educated, that's a little bit harder to do. So it ended up being a pretty comical experience, and we ran into each other a couple times, and never exchanged harsh or hateful words. It was actually pretty nice. Which I didn't expect, for sure.
That's awesome. That's interesting that you go to Florida to get away from the chaos. You get parked right next to essentially what could be chaos. Mm-hmm. You kind of made the best of what could be a shit sandwich, really. I mean, but I think that you nailed it when you said, it's not necessarily just the uneducated, but the who is the most easy to give hope to. It's those who are completely impoverished and don't feel like they have hope. So when you have someone like Trump that says the things that certain types of people want to hear,
right,
it does make sense that those certain types of people, not to quote-unquote stereotype, are going to drive their train there. And, of course, you had people who were very educated who were just looking for a not Hillary alternative. Right. And that's why we're in the mess we're in, But it's cool that you defused and handled the situation in a way that is really becoming of you as a person. A lot of people, I think, in this modern era think that if you're opposing views of someone or don't necessarily get their ground or where they come from, that you have to immediately be enemies, and you were very tactful. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it was a really enlightening kind of experience, because the majority of these people were probably in their early 50s, if not early 60s. I mean, I didn't ask them their age, but from what I saw from their appearance, they looked to be close to early retirement age, So to have a conversation that is so, I mean, it's like dropping a match in a can of gas and not expecting it to explode. You know what I mean?
You're taking quite a big risk here.
Yeah. And, it was really enlightening, because they didn't, their generation specifically, especially right now, is so hostile towards our generation, because what they think that we've done to ruin, quote unquote, ruin our nation. They were really, really casual and just, here's why I think this is the way that it is, and blah, blah, blah. And, and some of the stuff that they said is reasonable, and I agreed with it. And, I rebutted, and it was just really calm, and we had a good time. We shared a few drinks together. So that very rarely happens in America today. So that was a really, really good experience. And it was funny, too, because they were down. They actually came to Panama City for, what was it called, Skylar? The what? The Gulf Coast Jam. So it was like this impromptu musical festival that I've never heard of before, but it was Kid Rock, Jason Aldean, and Tim McGraw.
Whoa.
So, a couple pretty good artists there, all successful, in their own right. But apparently Saturday night, Jason Aldean was supposed to come on stage at 10 o'clock or like 10:05, and at 10 p.m., just said, fuck it, I'm out, and got on his tour bus and left and canceled at, like 5 minutes before the show was supposed to start. So, that's pretty shitty.
What was the reason? Do you know?
I never heard a reason. I talked to them the next day because, like I said, that's why they drove all the way down there, was to go to this music fest. And, they were pissed, obviously, because that was one of the reasons that they wanted to go to that event. And he said, the main guy that I was talking to said he gave no reason, he gave no warning. He said if you were close enough to the stage, you could see him. Like, you could see him get ready to come out. And then at 10 p.m., when it was his time to go, he said, you know what? Fuck it, I'm out. And just got on his tour bus and left. So I don't know if, like, maybe he got some bad information and then was terrified of the hurricane. Dorian's on the totally opposite coast of where we were at. We're in the Gulf. Dorian was on the East Coast. It hadn't even started hitting the Bahamas yet at that point, so I don't know. It's hard to say.
Damn, that's as a musician, I can't ever say that I would be willing to put that much effort into not doing a show. You know what I'm saying? Like, to get there, to be right there at the stage and not just fucking shut the fuck up for 35 minutes and do your job. Like, it's not that hard. You have one of the greatest gigs in the world is entertaining.
Right.
And for someone at that level to, I mean, and listen, I'm sure maybe he has his own reasons. Maybe the fucking promoter was a racist fuckbag and he just couldn't. He said, I don't want your money. I won't play. Fuck off. And that's an altruistic reason. I'm all for that. Cool. But if it was just some rock star bullshit, jumped off stage because he just couldn't hang or handle it, that's on you, man. You signed up for this shit. No one made you try to become a star, a celebrity, or a musician of that nature. No one put you through the ropes. You did.
Absolutely.
So don't fucking hoe your fans. That's silly.
And like I said, I never saw the actual reasoning on why he canceled last minute like that. Like you said, there may have been, or very well may have been, good justification there. But it was funny because we had such an awkward. Like, when I meet people for the first time, I don't just kick the front door down and be like, here's all my political views and here's my religious views and that's kind.
You can't go full blown Tyler,
right? And that's and that's kind of how our conversation started, and and for the rest of the time that we were there, or at least us, Skylar and Ruby and I, we had good interactions with that group of people. Skylar and I went out for a pseudo date night one night, and we saw them, getting ready to take off on their motorcycles when we were leaving the parking lot, and we stopped and talked to them for a few minutes. So it, like I said earlier, it totally surprised me, and it was nice. It just added that icing on top to being relaxed on vacation. So
you just gave me an idea that could be a huge reality TV money-making idea. It's going to be stolen as soon as we say it here, but trademarked on Journey into Comics first, motherfuckers. You heard it here first on September the 4th at 6:41 is when I'm recording this, just for legal purposes. What if there was a show where people of different political and religious backgrounds were sent on vacation together?
Man, that would be pretty nuts, I would imagine.
Because here's my thought. I think about the situation you were in, and I think if that same scenario plays out, you're in Lafayette, you walk into Walmart, there's some Kentucky redneck hillbilly motherfuckers there spouting their Trump propaganda and saying all kinds of shit. You interject, there's a war, guns might be pulled, like, it would be bad.
Right.
But because you were on vacation, and the guise of vacation existed, everyone was calm enough to just be like, let's just listen.
Yep.
Let's just hear each other out for a minute. Like, I'm telling you, man. NBC, I'm calling your asses.
Yeah.
That's a fucking
I was gonna say,
game changer.
We might need to reach out to like MTV, NBC, fucking CNN might even do it. I mean, we need to start calling people.
I'm down. Let's do this. Let's fucking pitch our show. Hostile Vacation. That's what you call it. The Hostile Vacation.
If fucking wife swap can get popular, surely we can make some bank on this.
Because then there's so many interesting things. Like, I just see like the men who maybe have similar but kind of totally politically different views are talking, and then the women are having a little like date night and they don't give a fuck and they've bonded. So that's like, internet gold, and everyone's like, oh, look at what great friends they are, but these guys are like, it's a drama, man. It just fucking sells itself.
Reality TV, man.
Anyways, let's not give away the whole cow.
Yeah.
Shit. So by the time folks are hearing this, I am fucking 4 days into bliss. I'm going to call it. I'm just going to guess that this is about to be a really good vacation for me. I haven't had a real true vacation in 3 years since the band started going full time. We really haven't had the opportunity to get away for more than 15 minutes. I mean, I guess you consider all the shows we play and all the different places we've been to, kind of been on vacation, but we're always working.
Right.
We're always doing something.
You're traveling for work.
This time we are traveling for pleasure. Well, I mean, in so many words. I'm going to talk about it now because I've not talked about it anywhere. So we were invited to Denver. It's not like we just decided, like, fuck it. Let's just, we're going to just go to Denver and have a good old time. When the girls were doing Casual Fiend Friday, we got a really very lovely message from Doyle of the Misfits, who invited us to their show. He said, listen, you guys on my guest list, let's do it. And through a lot of controversy of trying to make this vacation happen, we are there. We have booked a flight. We have booked our hotel, which got changed this morning because the hotel room we booked was gone before we booked it, and they still booked us,
Yep.
which is fucking dumb. Kind of pissed me off, but got upgraded to a nicer setup, so that's cool. All in all, I am really looking forward to getting away and just being not where I've been, not having to worry about any of the shit that goes on in my day-to-day or any of the things we've got to constantly be focused on. I'm going to be bringing the laptop, of course, but all the podcasts have been recorded. Everything's scheduled. That's why we're doing this on Wednesday. So there's nothing for me to do on vacation while I'm gone other than to hang out and have what is, I'm sure, going to be some form of a blissful experience.
Yeah, you're going to get off that airplane in Denver, and it's going to be like walking into the fields of Elysium. There's just going to be nugs raining from the sky. They're gonna put like a necklace around you, like a lei, when you get off in the Polynesian islands, and it's just gonna be joints.
Oh my God, that'd be heaven. That's heavenly. I'm into that. See, and that's a crazy thing. I'll be going to a state where it's recreationally legal, so me talking about it is not a big deal, allegedly. But no, man, I'm really looking forward to this trip. Denver seems like a nice place. There's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of different activities and places we want to go. We've got some friends out there, which is cool, because then we can connect with people in that regard, But all in all, like, I'm just really jazzed beyond a shadow of a doubt to see the Misfits again. That's going to be a cool experience. But then I kind of get this neat little redemption where a few months ago for Sarah and V's birthday, we got tickets to see The Damned. We saw The Damned, and when I went to that concert, I had a fucking full-blown monster migraine. One of the worst, migraines I've ever had. So I didn't really get a chance to enjoy The Damned when we saw them. I was really just hurting and wanting to be done with the experience, so much so, and I think I said this after we podcasted, I actually had V drive home because I was like, I'm not in any shape to drive. Like, it was that bad. So, to see The Damned in this capacity, where we're there under different circumstances in a different state, having the redemption to see that band is really fucking cool. Being able to see the Misfits again is really fucking cool. This will now be my second time seeing the OG Misfits out of their 10 shows. But, you know, I don't know what to expect from this trip. We're really going to have to be covering it more on 261 when I come home, because I will have, I'm sure, tons of stories to tell. You know,
I'm really glad that you and the girls are getting a legit vacation where you guys can just kick back and let loose and enjoy yourselves, because you guys all deserve a good vacay. So,
yeah, I mean, it's weird to think about, and this is what I've kind of been talking to them about as we've been gearing up for this trip, is that we really have worked our asses off for 3 years and put a lot of miles on our bodies and really did irreparable damage to ourselves through all these shows we've played. I mean, there's no denying, you know, Sarah's fingers are different now because of the way she plays. She's hurt, her pinkies have like slight deformalities, I guess you'd say, and just like starting to callus really bad. And V's, you know, bones hurt more and more just because of, oh my Lanta, what is that? Is that a dildo? What
I'm
is
opening
that?
a bottle of wine.
Oh, live on the podcast. This is awesome. You're going to hear the...
I'm going to drink this whole bottle of wine while I'm sitting here.
You need a little glass of the bubbly? That's a Chris Jericho reference. I don't know. Did you hear about that shit?
I saw the video that he posted, but I don't have any point of reference.
Okay, so he won the All Elite Wrestling's first world championship, and then that was cool. And then he went to a Longhorn Steakhouse after he got to Tallahassee. He flew into Tallahassee, and when he got to Longhorn Steakhouse, he realized that he did not have the right luggage. He had taken someone else's luggage. So he told his limo driver, he said, look, I need you to take my luggage, this luggage, back to the airport and come back. Well, he did. The only problem is that Jericho had left the AEW World Championship in the back of the limo. While the driver was in the airport, someone jumped in the limo and stole the actual championship belt that they just crowned. And so, crazy enough, today, the Tallahassee police have reported they found the belt. It is in perfect condition. It was found alongside of the road, if you can believe that. But yeah, Jericho cut a promo in a hot tub, and he was like, all I can do now is have a drink of the bubbly. It's really funny to watch you try to struggle with the bubbly. It's like there's almost an off-screen dick that you're just working. Oh, and I just mentioned dick and it popped right off. That looks gross. That looked like poo.
It's a cork.
Yeah, but it was very poo.
So, I'm a
vino.
I'm not a wino, but I'm a big fan of. I like that cork. Skylar's just
yeah, get it, girl.
Skylar's just chugging it too.
Get it,
Please
girl.
pour me a glass of that. So, more about me. I I have for a long time
Go on.
enjoyed wine. You know, since I was an early kid / teenager. You know, because I lived in Europe a long time up until I was in my teens. And
they have different drinking laws there.
Yeah, I mean, wine was just kind of a part of it just all the time, you know? And I have I'm not going to say, like, really, really developed palate when it comes to wine, but I know what I like and I know what I don't like. I do not really like sweet wine unless it's fruit wine, which is my favorite. So there is a winery in Florida called... Stand by.
Sure.
It's on the cork that you just had in your hand. Stand by.
Sure, please. It's fine. No big deal. Trying to figure out the name of this cool place.
It's Florida Tropical Fruit Winery, something like that. But their slogan is not a grape in the bunch. So all of their wines are made 100% from fruit. It's not a grape. And when I say, obviously I know that grape is a fruit, folks. Don't lynch me for that. But
I know what you mean.
they're not grape wines. So thank you very much. My loving wife just brought me a bottle of what is quite possibly my favorite wine ever. Yeah, I'm probably going to drink this.
Winning.
I'm probably going to drink this bottle of wine tonight. But anyway, we go and I have had some wine from this winery, but I've never been before. And we do a wine tasting. This was Friday. We go back again on Saturday and do another tasting. All different. We chose all different wines that time, and I don't like grapefruit. But one of the I've talked about it. I don't know on this show or not, but I know for sure I have on Podcastrophe. One of my favorite wines, or not wines, one of my favorite sodas is Squirt.
Which until the last time I saw you, which was at your house, I did not know was in fact a grapefruit soda?
Yep.
What?
It's a grapefruit thirst quencher. And one of the wines that we selected on this list was grapefruit. And the lady during a wine tasting says, well, I'm going to let you taste this. Because you chose the grapefruit wine, you get to taste an additional wine immediately before it. And I was like, okay. She said, we're going to let you try our passion fruit wine. Because for everyone that says they want a grapefruit wine, they say that the passion fruit wine tastes more like grapefruit than the actual grapefruit wine itself. So we try this passion fruit wine, which is what I'm drinking right now. And, it's like biting into a grapefruit without the nasty taste.
There's no afterbite.
Well, it's not. It's tart. It's the way that it makes your mouth feel, which is why I like grapefruit so much. But I don't like the taste of grapefruit. Long story short, I fucking immediately bought a bottle of this fucking wine. So, tangent after tangent, my man. I'm sorry.
No, you're all right. Now you're jamming on this delicious wine. Is this the same place that you sent the picture of the beer from?
No. We were
different place.
No, we were at a restaurant eating lunch, and the first beer that I sent, I was at a place called Hammerhead Fred's, where I got a delicious fish sandwich of my favorite variety of fish, which is cool because that doesn't happen very often. And I had some beer from a Floridian brewery, and then later in the week I went and got some beer from my favorite place in Florida, which is Destin. So,
hell yeah, man! It was a win-win across the board on your vacation. Sounds like you had a blast, man.
Oh hell yeah, man!
My story is gonna be: I tried this bud and I tried this flower, and I couldn't bring any of it home. Fuck. Which actually,
in the movie Grandma's Boy.
Yeah, I love that movie.
When they do the Frankenstein.
Yes.
That's how you need to be before you get on the airplane.
On the way home? Totally. You know what I learned though?
What's that?
Vapes and e-cigarettes you can actually take as your carry-on. So, I don't know if that includes those though, because
you're not supposed to be able to take you're not supposed to be able to take vapes on an airplane because it's an explosion risk.
Well, we just read on Southwest, and it says for carry-on, yes, but for your checked bag, no. Do you think that's because the lower cabin is depressurized?
Probably.
And because the actual cabin that you're sitting in is pressurized, it has a better opportunity not to explode.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to ask people, like, can I fucking fly with this pen? Is that cool? If they say no, I'm going to be like, fuck. Okay. That's all right. Not the end of the world.
Yeah, I don't know.
It'll be a fun time. Like I said, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of stories to come out of that. But from there, man, you know, it's been a while since we've been back together. You weren't on last week because, like I said, you're on vacation. We had Brando fill in. That was a fun time. He had a blast coming back and doing the show. And then we got super slap happy and did what was one of my favorite episodes of the OGs we've ever done. There were just so many laughs had and so many interesting stories that we forgot and were able to recall and reminisce about, and didn't even touch, like, honestly, I think we only got, like, to 2009 or 10, and we had to stop. We weren't even, and that was 2 hours of talking about concerts and shit, so, I'm excited for y'all to hear that one, but, anyways, we are journeying into comics. We did just do a nice little long intro, catching up and stuff. Tyler and I didn't get to do that before the show, so it was really nice to do that with you guys. We've got some comic books to actually discuss, my dude.
So one of the books that we're going to talk about tonight, I had read pretty much as soon as it dropped. The second one, however, I read right before the show, and mid-read, Nate and I had already started doing our pre-show, and I went, "Oh, dude, no fucking way!" So, if you've enjoyed our House of X / Powers of X kind of review / breakdown series that we've been doing the last couple weeks, we're not going to go as in depth as we have been, just for sake of brevity and time. But I think that these two issues are the best in the series so far, for sure.
Oh, and the thing to say, I think that you're going to keep saying that as we build, because every time I'm thinking that, like, it's funny that, you know, you hadn't read Powers of X2 until today, and then you get this big reveal, and you're like, oh shit, you know, holy shit, I'm freaking out right now. And to me, I'm like, that's a huge reveal, but there's like 7 more reveals in the upcoming issues that are just like, what the fuck, across the board, man. I mean, this is, they're starting to weave a really intricate story. And you know, one thing that's interesting to note about the story, before we get too deep into this actual thing, is there have been, well, at least for a minute, it was like a breath of air that this story popped, and then it went dead, because as you've read on in the series, you see that it's not anywhere the same. But Jonathan Hickman, who created the series, actually caught some flack, and you found an article that you sent to me that was this other author who wrote the book Harry August, and essentially it was a war of did plagiarism actually happen, and was it intentional, and all these things. What did you think about that whole situation that was kind of breaking down?
Well, plagiarism is the thing that I kind of take a weird, or I kind of have a weird perspective on, because any artist that draws inspiration from another artist's work, whether it was art that came out 10 days ago or 10 decades ago, you are plagiarizing an aspect of that artist's property. I mean, if an artist has a blue main character and then you make your main character blue, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. There was a phrase that I read a few years ago, and I can't recite it verbatim, but it was basically that every art is an artist's interpretation of what someone else has already done. So as long as it's not word for word, line by line, yeah. As long as it is not an, like, if you're not fucking copy and pasting that shit, is it really a problem? You know, and I read her accusations. I read his defense. I think what he said is pretty genuine, and I don't have any reason to not believe that he read the book, he liked the book, he may have used it for inspiration, but it's not one-for-one copy. So I don't think it was plagiarized.
Yeah, I agree with you fully. I don't think it was plagiarized. I also think that Kirk Hammett said it best, good artists borrow, great artists steal. Now, you might hear that and you might go, oh, that's gross. Like, why would an artist steal? But a great artist can take someone else's concept, something that someone else has fully created, and turn it on its head in such a manner that it's nothing like the original product. And that in itself is art. That is creation.
Absolutely.
So, and you said it best too, is it one for one, word for word? No. There's like a story device that this character in House of X that utilizes, that her story revolves around that same kind of device, but that's the whole story, is that one plot device being used again and again and again and again and again to tell a big story, as to where, at least to this point, with the character we're about to be discussing today, we've not seen her be such a pivotal role or that mechanism even be used more than in this one issue.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So we are talking House of X 2. If you guys haven't read House of X 1, Powers of X 1, or, House of X 2, you probably want to tune away now, because we are going to be getting into some form of spoilers, and there is a lot of stuff to cover. There are a couple questions that I'm going to have that I don't know if even have arose to you when, we started diving in on this. But to get right into it, we are talking about the life of Moira McTaggart. Now, some of you who've watched the movies will know Moira McTaggart from X2, X3, I think, and then they did away with her character. But this plot device they use is essentially the belief of reincarnation or regeneration. And Moira, I guess it's hard to say Moira. I'm figuring out which one it is, but essentially we get her first normal life. At least she thinks it's her first normal life, and she dies. And there's nothing really special about her life. She almost died when she was very young, but she survives this illness and, lives to have grandchildren and everything and normal. But then her second life, she's in the womb and she's remembering her previous experience. She knows of her previous experience. And I think that was a really cool idea and a concept, that her mutant power is, I guess, would you call it regeneration? Ever living, how would you really quantify what her power is?
I would call it, I don't know, because it's kind of like, it's not just that she's being reincarnated, she's being reincarnated into herself.
Exactly.
It's like Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow, live, die, repeat. That's essentially
Groundhog Life.
Yes, because she, in this, in these couple panels, when she is in the womb, and then when she's a toddler, and she starts walking and talking earlier than she should be able to, because she knows how to do it intellectually. It's when I read this, which was obviously a couple weeks ago at this point, I was floored that, number one, that it was this character. Excuse me, got the wine burps.
Oh, that happened.
Got the wine burps. But not only that it was this character, but in the beginning of this issue, in my mind, the first thing that I thought of was, well, if this is happening, shouldn't she realistically be the most powerful mutant, ever?
Well, and I think that's kind of what they're playing with, is technically in a lot of ways she is, because she has one thing no mutant in existence has: the knowledge of all of mutant time and space. And she's lived it. She keeps living it. Now, there's one interesting thing to note. We go through in this and we cover her fourth life, her fifth life, her sixth life. And interestingly enough, I want to mention this, all these different lives canonize moments that have already existed in Marvel Comics history. Not just in the MCU, but in all of Marvel Comics history. Moments from the 80s comics, 70s, 90s, and beyond. So you kind of get these plays of all these different things. And, you know, we get to the end of the book. And we've kind of already experienced the end of the book in this book. Mainly because it's all of Powers of X1.
Correct.
Where it's Charles and her on the bench. And he reads her mind. And, of course, now when I read these, that's a cliffhanger when he reads her mind and doesn't know because I read them out of order. So then reading Powers of X1, I was like, oh, my God, that's fucking amazing. Like, she already knows, and she's trying to guide Xavier into a better mutant life and kind of telling him, like, look, I'm going to use you and you knowing that I've talked to you to go to other versions of you to kind of align our plans to save our kind. And one thing I want to mention in this is that they do show off her timeline, her life timeline. Have you noticed anything about that that's interesting?
Maybe not what you're noticing.
Okay, so just at a first glance, the many lives of Moira X is what they call her. And they go through and they talk about year 1, you know, her birth, and then when certain things were happening, year 8, in the academy and her second life and so on and so forth. But one thing to note is there is no 6th life. It doesn't exist. There is no timeline for her 6th life. We don't see anything of it. We know nothing about it.
Didn't they explain that?
It does not exist. I don't think so. Unless I'm completely, absolutely insane. Let me see. 5th life.
No, they go straight from 5th life to 7th life.
7th. Yeah, they avoid that, and I don't know why. I'm not sure what they're keeping from that 6th life in this journey, but, you know, of course, as she evolves, she changes the timeline for mutants. She changes the what's the word I'm looking for here? The technology and the intelligence. She accelerates the timeline, as it were, in a lot of these situations, trying to stop the Sentinels from attacking, trying to prevent the mother mold from being created, and trying all these different things that ultimately a lot of times don't work for her. She dies a lot of brutal deaths. I mean,
we find out that, you know, even though that she's being reincarnated, she basically has a finite amount of times that that's going to happen.
Correct. She's almost like the Doctor. She can only do it so many times, and then her time is out. But interesting to note that according to the timeline, her 10th life, okay, the 10th life that she's experiencing is where, in her 52nd year of existence, the House of X starts. And the modern story is told. And so we don't really know where that ends. It's kind of the mystery where she is in the current time. A lot of her story is told in alternate paths leading to this moment, you know?
So
here, you know, go ahead.
I'm glad that you brought up the 10th life, because this is one of the timelines that I'm a little bit confused on. So in her 43rd year of life, Moira and Xavier recruit Magneto, okay? At some point in year 47, Moira and Xavier and Magneto all split. Then there's genocide, Moira fakes her death, and then House of X, okay? But in the issues that we've read so far, I don't see any of this 10th timeline playing out, and the House of X is something that exists in the timeline that we've been reading so far. So much like you said, with the 6th year of life missing, I look forward to a little bit more clarification here on what the hell's going on in her 10th life.
Peeling back the layers a little bit to figure out what exactly has been going on. I mean, you know, she uses she's very intelligent in using her knowledge of previous lives to fuel the change for mutant kind. But one thing that's interesting is in some of the more recent issues, and I know you haven't read these yet, I do want to mention they have recently revealed the Krakoan alphabet. So you could technically go back through and read what different things are on the pages that you can't technically read when this all first starts because they didn't reveal that. And then also, they have just made some humongous shifts to the landscape of all that is X-Men. Oh, did I lose you?
I froze for just a second.
Oh,
So,
you were right.
so I'm glad that you brought that up because I am not as far as you in the series. Since you'll be gone for vacation, I'll be caught up. So the next time that we record, we'll both be on the same page as far as where we're at in the series. Looking at the reading order, we talked about how we read House of X 1 and 2 before we read Powers of X 1. So we read this a little bit out of order. We've talked about that. What I am looking forward to, just looking ahead kind of in the timeline here, for Powers and House number 3, which we're going to do when you come back from vacation, if you go next to House of X4, Powers of X4, you've got House of X4 September the 4th, which came out today, Powers of X4, which comes out on the 11th, House of X number 5 comes out on the 10th. Or does that say 18th?
18th.
Okay. My screen was pixelated, and I thought it said the 10th. Never mind. Disregard what I was trying to say.
Damn it.
One
Bamboozled by the...
one glass of wine, and I'm toasted, folks.
Fuck. We're off the rails already, guys. We're screwed for the rest of the show. No, we're fine. I'm curious at what these, in the reading order, why there are some of them, only 3 of the 12 issues, that have red.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're red instead of black.
Maybe Powers of X number 6. See, I don't know. Maybe all the red ones are Moira-centric issues.
Ooh, could be. That's a good idea. That would be a good way to make it make sense. She's mainly featured in that second issue. We don't see her again till Powers 5, or House 5 and then Powers 6. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that'd be a cool way to do it, I think. Will they do it that way? I'm not sure, but
yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see in the coming weeks, but I mean, just glancing at this reading order, I mean, that's the first thing that comes to mind, because the first issue that is read in this outline is the one that we're talking about right now. So, and if you
100%.
look to, well, never mind. That's kind of a stretch. I was going to say if you look at the timelines, the timelines that are truly red are really the middle 3.
Well, now I gotta look. Okay, I see what you're saying.
But that's, like I said, that's kind of a reach and a stretch too. One thing that I've talked about in every issue that we've talked about so far is the art. I'm still really, really digging the art and the dossier sheets. I want to really spend a minute and talk about how awesome this cover for issue 2 is. This is one of the, I mean, this is a style as far as kind of how the cover is laid out that just in comics you've seen a lot. But if you're looking at this like as a prism, kind of looking at it that way, I mean, the center is all Moira, and then there's all these super influential and important characters surrounding her, which means that in my opinion, throughout the rest of the series, we are going to see Moira interact with each and every one of these characters in some capacity.
I absolutely think that is the way they're going with this. I think that she also... And, you know, here's an interesting thing that I don't think many people maybe noticed. The fingerprint in the background around Moira. Right, there's a little bit of a fingerprint latching out. And what does that mean? I think that means that, and much like what you just said, she is going to be leaving her fingerprints, as it were, all over the history of the X-Men, all over everything. And everything is going to change because of her. Like the story that we all know as the X-Men will forever be different because Moira McTaggart alters it in whatever shape, way, or form. You know, maybe the sixth life is a life we don't get to see until later because it's a time-traveled life. You know, maybe she gets scooped up into the future and then sent back to the past or some shit like Terminator. Who knows?
Right.
I do really love her in the kind of Apocalypse-esque look
on
this cover. That's like really badass, and she's, you know, got just some of her different lives you can see there, and surrounded by Scott and Magneto and Marvel Girl and Wolverine and Emma Frost, and you got all kind of Mystique is on there, Blob, you know. This book, let me tell you, man, good luck finding it. Woo! Flew off the shelves. It's expensive. It's already like a $60 book.
Wow, I did not realize that this series was selling so well.
It's selling insanely well. It's actually the highest selling Marvel comic in like the past 3 or so years, I think is what they were saying.
Really?
Yeah, so it's, I mean, the series is doing well. I think people are interested. The story has got people's attention. Obviously, we're covering it, so... And I think people are enjoying our coverage of it. And I think other people are covering it as well. And it's interesting to talk about because it's, again, you're looking at the X-Men through a different lens. You're not looking as like a story that lasted 10 years. You're looking at it as multiple versions of the same characters and how they evolve or change through the timeline.
Well, I think one thing that's important to point out too is, you know, especially with all the Spider-Man controversy that's happening right now in entertainment, we as a fan base are ready for the X-Men. I feel like if this series, as great as it is, in our opinions, had released a few years ago, that it may not have struck the same chord as it has so far, because we as a fan base were not ready to have the X-Men back. You know what I mean?
And now we're salivating for them to be back. And one thing that's, you know, pretty interesting to talk about, that having them ready, they're also back in the MCU. And here we go, a really good story. And what have we learned? Not necessarily directly 100%. You know, you can't look at it and say it's a 1-to-1 exact. Marvel, though, has done a really good job of masking their plans for story in the movies within what they're doing in the comics. Here's kind of a like a little trail. You know, back in 2015, they started doing, you know, the whole concept of the new Avengers, and you had, you know, Falcon becomes Captain America, there's a Lady Thor, and now all these things are coming to fruition now, 4 and 5 and 6 years later. So I do think that at some point we might get this House of X story. Who's to say Moira McTaggart isn't the reason that the X-Men get brought in? Because in her first life, when, let's say, the Battle of New York happened and Thanos' snap happened... No, I don't want to fucking close that. Just drop the mouse. That was awesome. Live during the podcast. I fucking hit the wrong button. That's cool. Hopefully I didn't need that. I don't think I did. I'm pretty sure I didn't. Luckily for me, I've been preparing for this vacation, so I've been keeping things on the list good. So, anyways, but wouldn't it be interesting if she was like just some normal lady who didn't survive the snap, but then she was alive again, and she knew, and she was aware, and she's like, wait, how the fuck do I know this? How the fuck do I know this is coming? And then what does she do in her second iteration? Try to unite the X-Men. Third iteration, try to stop Thanos. Fourth iteration, try to stop mutants from becoming extinct at the hands of humankind. Fifth, and then you have a whole broad story that spawns off thousands of little stories. You could go anywhere in the timeline at that point. Tell whatever story you want. People are going to be hooked.
I dig it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I think we should dive into this Powers of X 2, yeah? Take the lead on this one, man. You just read this today, so give me your... walk me through it, I guess, what you thought.
So I want to open with with the same way that you would open if you were reading the book. The first panel that you see is one of these dossier sheets, and it, I think kind of the precedent that they've set with these panels, or not necessarily these panels, but with the covers, who the issues are about primarily. This is a very Magneto-centric story, and the Brotherhood of Mutants for that matter, but the first dossier sheet that we get is a quote from Magneto. It says, "There is a chasm between you and I, Charles, a gap that cannot be crossed. With each passing day, I fear it never will be," from Magneto. And then we get a very ominous feeling interaction between Charles, Magneto, and Moira McTaggart.
Yeah, it's really...
Which I did not expect to see her so soon.
And that's actually a really interesting thing about seeing Moira so soon, is that you get this really interesting moment where you have to realize that in this timeline, it's the earliest days of the X-Men, right when the series is starting. If we're looking at it from a comic book perspective, is when this information is allegedly being given to Magneto, and it's flooding his brain, and he's seeing kind of the villain he is going to become, and it fucking breaks him a little bit, man. It brings him down. I thought that was a very, very powerful moment,
Well, that panel, that top panel, when you get the information transfer into Magneto, everything that's in purple, it's in his theme, basically. You get to see some really incredible imagery there. You get to see, him fighting a Sentinel, Magneto in chains, which is something that we don't get to see that perspective very often, because he's normally in a place of power. You get to see an interaction of Magneto and Nick Fury, which I really liked. I look forward to possibly seeing Nick Fury a little bit farther on. I think it would be cool to have a cameo from Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. later on in this series, with some of the stuff that we get teased, or some of the stuff that we've already had teased that we now get to dive into a little bit further in this issue. One thing that I want to point out, if you back up just one panel or one page, that bottom panel right before they do the information transfer, Xavier is basically begging Magneto, just trust me one more time, and you get that iconic, Magneto always takes his helmet off a certain way. He's so regal and proper about how he does it. And I was a little bit surprised, actually, that he was so willing to trust Xavier. Obviously you got to fit narratively, you got to do some stuff. But, in the beginning of this page, Moira asks Magneto what would or who decides who is evil or not, and Magneto just straight up says, "Well, sorry, I'm the one that does."
Yeah, and I think that with Magneto deciding, having that decision of who is good and evil wash over him, it kind of overwhelms him as a person, and he realizes that the only way they are ultimately going to not die is to work together. Mm-hmm. And they form a partnership, at least. That's what we see, and I think that's the House of X, age 43 Moira that we talk about. That's the moment they formed their partnership before the Great Schism, which you actually touch on the schism at the very beginning of this with that first dossier page talking about the chasm between him and Charles, because that is fast-forwarding, I think, to that moment after the partnership has already faltered.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
But this is the plan, essentially, to set in motion what happens in year 10, Krakoa. Mm-hmm. They're going to try to find a way to save mutant kind. We get Scott talking about Orcus and trying to show Magneto and Charles, they're talking about what Orcus is made of, how it's compartmentalized parts from different people we already know. We do get a weird thing, and I'm not sure I understood this yet because we haven't fully been revealed everything, but we get a visual of Nimrod way before we've actually been introduced to that character. So I just think that's that's where they say Nimrod will become operational, and Scott's like, oh damn. But they all realize that this movement that's coming from Orcus has to be stopped.
Right.
Or they're dead.
With the way that this issue is set up, I'm almost inclined to believe that Nimrod is actually not Charles Xavier in the future.
Looking back at it, that is possible. And then, of course, there's some things you haven't read yet, too, that change my perspective of who Charles becomes as well. So I kind of agree with you here that maybe Nimrod is a form of Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe that's something that's right in front of our eyes that we just don't see.
Right.
But we get X-Men Year 100. That's the X2 life.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a team of X-Men comprised of Cardinal, Rasputin, Wolverine, Magneto, Zorn. But who are they being led by, my dude?
Fucking Apocalypse.
Blew your fucking mind, didn't it?
Well, I was reading this while we were doing our pre-show, trying to get up, scrambling because of vacation and everything. And I'm on this Year 100 panel right when it opens, and I get to the bottom and I see that big blue fucking arm, and I was like, no way, man. And I get to that next panel, and it's just, you get almost a full body shot of Apocalypse, and the sarcophagus is in the background, and this is like his antechamber, and everything's all hieroglyphicked up, and it's just incredible imagery. You've got, the light, like the light rays shining off of his armor and everything. It just looks incredible.
I think he says something really deep in this set of panels, because he has a little bit of a monologue talking about knowledge and all these things, but he says, "Give me your eyes, children. For this I would have sacrificed all of you. It means that much." It's a different side of Apocalypse we've never seen, because there's an alternate version of Apocalypse that would have just killed anything in his path and not really given that much of a shit.
Right, because he has that ability.
Exactly. He's very much in tune. It almost is emotional. He's almost like saddened by the thought that he knows what he has to do and that he might have to sacrifice these people.
Totally. It's a perspective or kind of like a lens that we don't or we really haven't ever been able to look at Apocalypse through, because he's always been just the fucking big bad guy. You know what I mean?
Brute fucking strength and brutality.
Yeah.
And it peels the layer back. It gives him some humanity, which is, interesting to talk about. What do you think about just the sheer force of Nimrod the Lesser? We get to see him just kind of go fucking nuts on some dudes.
Well, with the way that his body is structured and everything's going on, it kind of makes me feel like maybe he's actually Apocalypse.
Oh.
But I don't... I can't say that. Everything's purple themed, so, just as far as color schemes goes, it makes me feel like it's Magneto. But, he's talking to some straight minion level dudes, and when he's fucking had enough, he's had enough, and he incinerates them.
Yep. And he just picks up this dude's skull and starts chatting with it. Not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's got to continue the monologue.
Yes, he does. He can't stop monologuing. Kind of makes me think it might be Magneto, too, because,
yeah.
Monologue king, huh? But Nimrod sees the mutants and their plans, and he's like, oh, well, we need to stop that now. Also, there's also Walking Krakoa.
Yeah.
We have the Walking Krakoa. You were right. That is a piece of Krakoa that is sentient.
I really wanted to believe that it was Groot, but we can't all get what we want.
So these are all the mutants that are survived on Asteroid K, as we learned. I think in the previous issue there are only 8 of them remaining.
Correct.
But we had one of them, the one that starts with a P. I can't think of that one's name.
Percival?
Percival dies. And yeah, things aren't so smooth right now. We get them kind of going over their plans and looking at what they're looking for with this operation. And I loved this big panel of Wolverine just saying that we're going to have to fight our way in, hold them off while we get the thing, and then fight our way out. It's a suicide mission. Like, you understand that, right? And Zorn's response is maybe the most perfect thing in this book. I've never been more excited for anything in my entire life.
How do you feel about Zorn?
It's a character I don't really know a lot about, so I'm kind of learning to like this character as kind of a sarcastic, almost a witty sarcasm to the sensible sarcasm that comes from Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yep. We actually have another, I don't even know how to explain Nimbus. I don't know should we read Nimbus, or do we want to try to paraphrase what they're talking about with Nimbus? Well, I think before we go to that, what we need to really highlight in this final panel before it kind of moves forward is, Wolverine's going on his kind of soapbox, and Big Poppa Apocalypse basically says, "This is a promise whose guarantee is assured, for I will lead you." We're going to see Apocalypse wade into battle at the forefront of the remainder of the mutants, and I cannot wait to see this.
Oh, yeah. It's, this is a storyline you wouldn't expect. He's leading the X-Men for I will lead you. Like, that's such a powerful line, and it's a line that you never would have heard Charles Xavier say.
No.
I think that's one thing I really resonated with me is when you think about all the times the X-Men were in peril, Xavier was never at the forefront of the battlefield saying, I will lead the charge.
Correct.
He was always saying, here's the schematics, here's the plan, Storm, I need you to do this, Cyclops, go do that, fucking Jean Grey, do that, whatever. Mm-hmm. This is not that. This is very much Apocalypse takes the reins, and I think that you nailed it. We're definitely going to have to call this episode 260 Big Pop Apocalypse.
Yeah, I mean, Apocalypse is such an interesting character that, that I'm really, really, really excited to see the layers get peeled back for this character, because he's always been so one-dimensional in the past, and, you and I could spend the next couple hours just talking about Moira's involvement in this series, the implications moving forward. We've touched on that a little bit. How she is now basically the puppet master of the mutant salvation, and Apocalypse is her number one tool in this point. He has never been involved until she made him involved in the way that he is, and that is such a unique perspective and an original take on the character of Apocalypse that, like I said, he's always been so one-dimensional. He's the Thanos. He's the he is the X-Men's big bad. At its root. So it's really interesting, or it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how his plotline plays out moving forward. You asked about Nimbus. I think the best way, and they talk about it in this kind of dossier, is Nimbus is basically the Kree's super intelligence, but more like on a planet or solar system level.
Correct. It's like a sentient library of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. And that's where we end up, and we find out that we've already been in the last couple issues when we get to X-Men Year 1000.
Correct. We're here with the librarian, a different form of Nimrod. It's now kind of just this floating sentient creature.
Mm-hmm.
It's
a drone.
Drone. That's a much better word. But the librarian, who I don't think they actually introduced as the librarian yet in this, or was that the last issue? Probably.
Maybe I think it's been named one time, and I think that was in the last issue.
Yeah, because last issue was the 4 parts where we saw the different 4 versions of Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Year 1, Year 10, Year 100, Year 1000.
Yep.
Which is where we are now. The librarian's here, and he is on the roof of this building on Nimbus, and something comes out of the nothingness. These black shadows just form in front of him, and almost like reverse snap materialize in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
Is the best way to say that. And it's the phalanx.
I like how they didn't just go cheesy and say "We are Legion" for "We are many." You know, phalanx is a word in the English language that doesn't get brought up very often. So, but the first line of dialogue that we see phalanx say is "We," and I like how they keep putting phalanx in parentheses or brackets. "We ate your world mind."
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
That they just took in all of the knowledge of of Nimrod, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hope that doesn't mean they destroyed it, but that they just, like, ingested it.
Mm-hmm.
I think 8 is maybe ingesting and taking in the knowledge. But, you know, they essentially ask the librarian and the people living on Nimrod, like, what do you seek? And one of the elders says, ascension. And it's like, oh, brutal. What a...
When you... sorry to interrupt, but when you look at this top panel, when Phalanx is asking the question, what does the form that Phalanx is taking remind you of?
Well, it kind of looks like Galactus.
Thank you.
It kind of also has a little, and this is very subtle, in a little bit of a way, it kind of looks like Mother Mold as well. Like you could see like the spaceshipy head thing, take the body away.
Right.
But I'm not certain what the reveal of the Phalanx is going to be. We're charting into new waters here with this book. We get a rundown of the societies and how they work. The planetary societies versus galactic societies. Going from machine to the hive to the intelligence to the Techna arc to World Mind and then Phalanx. And then to fill in, the Phalanx is an interstellar society that operates on a galactic scale and represents an intellect that has total control of a host galaxy. At the level of society, an intellect exists only to expand its own intelligence by consuming lesser societies and to control the energy needs that expansion demands. If a Phalanx encounters a society that is worth consuming by adding it to its intelligence needs, then ascension occurs. But if a Phalanx encounters a society that is not worth adding to its collective, then it will seed that society with a techno-organic virus. That virus will eventually produce a Babel Spire that will summon a Technarch to repurpose that societal waste from the universe.
Note, Technarchs do not know that they were manufactured to serve the Phalanx cause. So, at the top of this page, it says Technarch, an artificial collective intelligence manufactured by a Phalanx that was created to classify, order, and assimilate other existing societies. This removal/repurposing of societies is a Technarch's sole purpose. A Technarch exists as a singular node, often taking the shape of a world, but can be any series of planetary objects or formations called a whatever that is. I cannot pronounce it.
I think it's Kitsch.
Okay. Each Kitsch is controlled by an alpha intelligence called a Magus. Each Technarch believes it is the only Technarch in existence, and Technarch are invisible to other Technarch. So you go to the next page, and you get to see kind of this hierarchy of civilizations on a galactic scale. And this is pretty cool. I mean, I totally did not expect to see something like this, or this to kind of go super sci-fi with it. You know what I mean?
They totally break down, like, through symbols, how it works. And how it operates. And you can kind of see that a Technarch, if you take a Technarch and lay it over the world mind, it becomes a form of phalanx.
Correct.
So, and then, of course, that same thing can be said with, I think there's, like, intelligence in some forms of the hive can do that as well. Like, to get from machine to intelligence. So, I agree. I love that they give you all the background makes the story huge. To get this much extra detail, I think, is humongous.
Totally.
And then we, of course, get the headline of where we end on the book, which is a quote from Professor X. You must see by now there is no you and I. There is only us. We are together or we are nothing.
Do you think that is a Professor X quote or a Krakoa quote?
Ooh.
Because we get to see Krakoa as a sentient being later on.
Well, I mean,
in this issue,
it says Professor X.
But is it Krakoa influencing him?
That's
is
what
what
I'm
getting
wondering
at.
too. Absolutely. I fully agree with you on the possibility of the influence of that line. All in all, though, man, these books back to back are a fun read. This series is, like I said, picking up steam. It's huge. People are selling this fucker out. They're doing second and third and fourth prints of these books.
Which is awesome. You know, that's great for the X-Men.
Huge win. Humongous win for them across the board. Well, brother, is there anything else we want to dive into before we get out of here?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Not true.
I want to... What do you mean?
I just remembered one thing I wanted to talk about on the podcast that I haven't talked to you about yet officially. I gave you some, like, very vapid, loose thing. Because I watched a movie.
Oh, shit. I have not watched that movie yet.
Well, I'm going to talk about it, and let me be the king of unpopular opinions for a second, because this movie made my brain hurt.
Okay.
There are parts of this film I loved. Absolutely thought it was stunning. I thought they did a great job in some regards. However, that is the weakest, sorriest excuse for a story that I've ever seen. It does a poor job of thinly tying together themes that they want you to care about in the last second. And they shit the bed unequivocally in the ending. Of course, I'm talking about X-Men Dark Phoenix. Here's the thing, man. Like, an hour into this movie, I was about to text you and go, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I fucking love this movie. Because it was doing enough for me. You know what I'm saying? But now, I don't think so. It was shit. It was properly shit. The movie was, in fact, shit. That's all I can say. Is the movie was shit.
So it was everything that we expected it to be, is basically what you're saying.
Oh, man. It's just, like I said, when you have the opportunity to deliver a solid story and you fall that flat on the ending, you shit the bed.
Yeah.
Like, fully without question. And that's exactly what happened. There is no wonder this movie did so poorly and was pulled from theaters. There are a lot of concepts that were cool. You know what I think really bothered me, too?
Go on.
They took, without meaning to, of course, this movie has been in production since before some of these movies came out, keep in mind. There were enough things in this movie stolen from other movies, though. Like, there's a race that's essentially the Skrull. They don't get called Skrull. I think they were going to be Skrull. Captain Marvel prevents that from happening. Mm-hmm. You had the whole concept of you have a team, but now the team splits up and everybody's on opposite sides, like Civil War.
Right.
Everybody comes back together like Endgame to win the day and defeat the boss with an ultimate sacrifice at the end, as it were. Yeah. I think this is just a knockoff of a lot of other better movies. It could have been great. They really fell short on the ending, and that's my critique of it. Go see it to judge for yourself, but I think there's... Tyler, if you saw it, you would watch it and go, man, there are parts of this movie I fucking love, but... ... Fuck.
Man, that is so unfortunate because, movies like The Last Stand, X2 left such a bad taste in our mouth for as far as the X-Men is concerned. I think you would agree with me, like a lot of fans would agree. That first X-Men movie, though it's not perfect, has a lot of flaws. It hit us in all the right places, which primed us to be ready for Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk and that first Avengers movie and Captain America and Thor. If we did not have that first X-Men movie, the MCU would not be where it's at today, or if it would not be in the same capacity that it is today. I don't feel like. So it's really sad that a franchise like the X-Men, one of the most popular and important franchises for Marvel, has, as far as cinematically, ended as poorly as that.
It's like you race a perfect race in NASCAR. It's the Indy 500, and you've run 499 laps pretty good. Sure, there were a couple times where you were towards the back of the pack, had to fight your way to the top, but there was a moment there where you were surging. And then you blew a tire with one lap to go and ended up rolling your car 7,000 times.
Womp womp.
Womp womp is exactly the best review for that movie. It's a big womp womp. Beautifully stunning. There are some cool moments. Some of the ideas are cool. Some of the concepts are nice. Like, it's fun. I think that it was a good cast with a shitty movie. That's another thing, too. I really enjoy a lot of the cast. Like, I like James McAvoy. I love Fassbender. I really do like Sophie Turner quite a bit. Ty Sheridan has grown on me, especially since I really liked Ready Player One. So these characters, man, they had an opportunity to wow me, and unfortunately, Fox said, "This is what we can do with properties."
That's unfortunate. How was Michael Fassbender's performance in the film?
Star of the movie.
Perfect.
He absolutely steals the show. He steals the scenes. There are so many absolutely moving moments for him that he's one of the reasons that I redeem this movie as much as I do. His performance is spectacular. That's all I have to say about that, Tyler. You got anything else to add, brother?
No, I look forward to watching Dark Phoenix and having that conversation about how great the movie could have been, about what it could have done for the franchise.
Or you being the king of unpopular opinion, you might come back and say that you loved it.
Maybe I'll like it. I doubt it. The Dark Phoenix, like a quick kind of diatribe here. The Dark Phoenix storyline is something that is incredible. It only needed to be done once ever. Like, that is the swan song of X-Men stories, for a lot of people. There's great ones out there, obviously. But you're telling me that with all the material in the X-Men and all the writers in Hollywood, the only story that you have that you can write with impact and really mean anything is that one storyline? Come on.
Yeah, and of course the reason is that the Dark Phoenix story revolves around Scott's love for Jean and the ultimate whatever back and forth that they have with each other. But this movie, another thing, the pacing was off. Like, I agree with you that one of the most impactful stories in X-Men history is the Phoenix/Dark Phoenix story. She debuts as Phoenix in X-Men 101. It's not until X-Men, I think, 135 that she becomes Dark Phoenix, and then that starts to happen and take over. Or no, it's 105, and then by 135, 136, and 137 there, ending that story arc with Jean having the Phoenix removed from her or whatever. But no, man, they did not pull from their source material good enough. They really didn't, and they really wanted you to feel the impact in this story, but they did not give you enough substance to do so.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a real boner killer.
That blows.
Well, no, it doesn't, because a boner with not a boner is not blowable. I mean, it's just weird.
Semantics, my man, semantics.
I guess I'm battling semantics now, folks. All right, well, as always, you can check out the Journey into Comics podcast on the Journey into Comics network at journeyintocomics.com. Get us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, Spotify, CastBox, TuneIn, and many others. Just search Journey into Comics Network. One feed is all you need. You get all of our amazing shows right here every day of the week coming at you live through the power of Podbean. And you can also go to patreon.com/Journey into Comics. Give us $1 or more for early access and exclusive content and all kinds of goodies, including phone calls from me where I'll tell you how to podcast and shit. I don't know if I can podcast and shit, but at least I'll try. I think that's going to do it. This week's episode of Journey into Comics. It's been Journey into Comics 260, Big Pop Apocalypse. I have been Nate.
And I've been Moira McTaggart.
As always, folks, pop your caps back, fill your brains with shit, be regenerated, live your life again knowing you're going to fill your brains with shit, fill your brains with shit a little bit sooner, and then pop your caps back one last time in your 10th life and fill your brains with shit. Later, guys.
Later.